To all my listeners, whether you're a gold bug or you're concerned about inflation and protecting your capital, you need to check out my brand new conversation with Dan Ferris on the Stansberry Investor Hour podcast out now. You can easily access the episode by clicking the link in this video description box. Hope to see you there. Hi, this is Daniela Cambone, and welcome back to StansberryInvestor.com. Well, the dollar's choppy start to the year has not discouraged some investors from betting the U.S. currency will continue with its march higher, mostly lifted by a hawkish Fed. But my guests today do not see eye to eye on this topic, and you know how much I love a good debate. So please welcome to the show Todd Bubba Horwitz of BubbaTrading.com and my former colleague over at TheStreet.com, now financial advisor with UBS, Tracy Byrnes. Tracy, Bubba, this is wonderful. I love this reunion.
It's great to be here with you and Tracy.
It's going to be a good time. I feel like we're going to do a quick market roundup here. I know you guys agree and disagree on some stuff. Let's start with the U.S. dollar because, Bubba, you are short the dollar. Tracy, I know you're long the dollar. Bubba, why short?
Well, I mean, the first thing, when you have central banks and the Federal Reserve that are destroying all the fiat currencies across the globe, you're going to have lower dollars. And even when they sometimes appear higher, they're still worth less. Why do you think we have this massive inflation that we have? It's also the cost of dollars, which we don't have anymore because a dollar buys so much less than it bought in the past. So we're going to continue to see this. Now, again, there'll be another pop at some point, but the dollar itself now is extremely weak. And I guess it's the US's turn to devalue their currency as the rest of the world holds on, and then they'll take their turn, but they never quite get it all back. And it's kind of destroying the overall economy around the globe, which is trying to work with their agenda to take total control, which is why they're fighting the crypto world and all the other things. But to me, the dollar looks very weak here, and I think we're going significantly lower for now.
Significantly lower, and also you're very bearish the euro, correct?
The euro, actually, I'm long at the moment, but I'm really not bullish currencies in general. I think currencies have become big options that decay over time with the influx of the central banking systems around the globe that continue to interfere. Instead of letting free markets and price out the asset classes, they allow the central banks to manipulate to what they want to make their agendas or their political parties' agendas to fit the script. And I think that is obviously horrible.
Concentrated effort to devalue currencies. Would you say we're currently in a currency war?
I don't think it's a currency war. I think this is a scripted deal that the central bankers around the globe have agreed on, that they continue to work on their currencies because they've all got the similar problems. We've all got inflation. We all got too much expenses, not enough money, and they've all been printing money. I mean, if you look at the interest rate market, I mean, yes, interest rates are rising, but if you subtract the CPI from the interest rates we have, the nominal rates are still negative.
Tracy, you're long dollar. Let's get your thoughts.
I'm always, I'm go US, because at the end of the day, we are still the strongest currency available out there. And Todd's right on everything he said. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. But we also know that we are starting to see other countries talk about increasing rates, much like we are. So if we all start moving in tandem, we still will come out ahead at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, this is where you want to be. 9 times out of 10, this is where you want your money to be too. So I think we win. Inflation will certainly be an issue for us for a very long time. Sadly, it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere anytime soon. But I think come hell or high water, it's still good old US of A.
Let's talk the Fed and interest rate hikes now. I want to get your thoughts on what they may or may not do. Atlanta Federal Reserve President Raphael Boschte coming out saying he anticipates hiking interest rates 3 or 4 times this year, but he stressed that the central bank isn't locked into a specific plan yet. Bubba, I know you've been very harsh towards the Fed recently. What do you think they're going to do here?
Well, they're talking about potentially 2 rate hikes in March. I think there's no chance. They're so far behind the curve here, Daniela. They are 5 years, 6 years behind. In fact, you can make a case that when we had the taper tantrum in 2013, that's when we should have started hiking rates. All they've done is create a massive amount of debt, okay, allowing the governments to continue to print money, which at the end of the day, when they have to raise rates, and rates are going up, whether you like it or not, the bond vigilantes are forcing rates higher here. and the Fed is going to have to raise to keep up with them. And really what that does, it now takes the US debt, and right now you're adding $75 billion a month to the debt service of our debt from our bonds. So it's a ridiculous setup, and they continue to kowtow to Wall Street and to the government, not raising rates when they should. And they're way off of their original mandate of what they're supposed to be doing. And this is the biggest problem, and why we have these disastrous times in front of us, especially with the higher inflation.
Tracy, do you agree that the Fed is too far behind? Because even if they were to go into extreme tightening here, would it be enough to fend off inflation here?
I think inflation's here just for all the practical reasons that we're feeling companies pushing costs along to us. We're feeling still supply chain issues. That alone is going to keep inflation here for a while. And I agree with Todd. I think, though, that we're going to end up seeing rate hike in March and May, probably 25 basis points. I know they're floating 50. I don't think that's going to happen. But and we could see anywhere from 5 to 7. What I think needs to happen is they got to pull the Band-Aid off already and get started. Because Todd will be the first to tell you that this market, much like teenagers, hates uncertainty. You need to just let them know we're starting and we're going. Otherwise, the volatility on a day-to-day basis requires Dramamine some days. So I think that as long as we get started, the markets will settle itself down. Come the back half of the year, things will certainly get better. We'll start to feel all the improvements we supposedly made regarding the supply chain, and inflation may temper itself. But until then, it could be really, really bumpy, and nobody likes that.
Listen, I think that the biggest problem we have here is the ridiculous Green New Deal, okay, which again, I'm all for being green, okay. However, you could stop the inflation tomorrow. Just allow fracking and shale, but instead you gave all the power to Saudi Arabia, which is never going to do us any favors. They gave the power in the world lies within Russia, Saudi Arabia, and China, which are three countries that would love to stick a knife in our back. Okay. And this is ridiculous. We should be back to being an oil exporter, because if you look at the overall population, 36% of the world is represented by China and India, which are never going to stop burning coal. So you're not going to be able to put a bubble over the United States and stop pollution. Plus the fact that you've only got about 1 to 2% of electronic vehicles out there now. And everything we do takes oil, whether it's making a water bottle for you to drink out of, or your car, or the supply chain. Every single thing we do still revolves around fossil fuels, and we don't have the cure or the salvation of that yet. We need to continue to frack and shale so we can be an exporter, satisfy our debt, and bring inflation back down to reasonable levels so that the Fed can do their job without creating a major monster mess.
Okay, you brought up oil. So on that point, what is the likelihood of a Russian invasion of Ukraine, and what would it do for oil prices? Would we see a spike?
I think that first of all, I think there's probably zero chance that there's going to be an invasion. Okay, I think this is more lip service. But if there were, I mean, how much higher is oil going to go other than to new highs? I think that oil's going over $100 a barrel under any circumstances, and probably higher. I think there's a real threat. We test the all-time highs of 147. So at this current pace, but if they go in, you've got oil that could be a problem, natural gas, which could be a problem. And don't forget about good old wheat as well, which, if Marie Antoinette let them eat cake, if we have no flour, no wheat, we can't eat. So it becomes a much bigger problem.
Yeah, and I'll jump in too now. Like, all this stuff trickles down to the consumer, Daniela, because you're talking about oil, you're talking about buying bread at the food store. If the consumer falls off, right, demand goes down. Inflation is like a lose-lose to me, because you either have it and then we're passing on prices to the consumer. If inflation goes down, that often means demand goes down. We don't want demand to go down, but it's going to probably go down if things get too expensive. So I don't envy the Fed at all, quite frankly, right here. But we still have to remember the consumer controls so much of this for us. Consumer debt is up higher than it's ever been in a while. We just heard those numbers recently. The consumer needs to get back out there. And if we keep scaring them with headlines of invasions and inflation and things like that, they're not going anywhere.
How do we get them out there with no money? You can't make enough money today to satisfy the prices that you have to pay. I mean, I've got a friend of mine in Texas that a year ago was paying $1.48 for gas. He's now paying over $3 a gallon for gasoline. And of course, you've got the president trying to reach out to Saudi Arabia saying, hey, can you give us a favor and give us more oil? And what are they going to say? No, for sure. But think about it. Again, we shouldn't be in that position to need more. We should be able to handle it on our own, which would bring down the prices. And of course, they did agree last week to add a little bit of the supply, but that's only because we're coming into the hottest driving season, not to mention the empty shelves we have because we can't deliver the goods because there isn't enough fuel. So again, these are very nasty things that are happening right now.
And I want to go back to a point, Tracy, you made where you said you don't think the Fed will move higher than a quarter percentage point. Why do you think that? Is it because they want to avoid a market crash here?
I think he's scared to death. Poor thing. Like, again, I don't envy these guys at all. And I love him, but he should never speak off script. That's just note to self there. Like, anytime he answers questions, the market goes haywire. So maybe we shouldn't do the Q&As anymore. I think that it will keep the volatility at semi-bay if we do 25 at a time. That is what the market's expecting. I think that's where they should go. To go 50 right off the bat would certainly send the market tumbling, and maybe that's what investors want, or some investors want, because they could take advantage and buy on the dips. But it'll really hurt your older families and the poor widow who is relying on her retirement checks to come every week. And those are the people we don't want to hurt, and those are the people we keep screwing, because just like he mentioned with gas prices, they don't want to drive. Lots of people don't want to take jobs that are far away from their homes because the cost of gas will eat their whole paycheck. All this stuff comes down to Main Street, and they seem to forget that in La La Land down in DC. They forget it all comes down.
Tracy, doesn't it make sense? So that's why interest rates should be higher to begin with, is for those people you just pointed out. And I think that this is the problem when you have idiots running the country, and I'm talking about the Fed. Okay. The Fed, you're a brilliant person before. Once you go in, you have no common sense. You have no understanding of how markets work anymore. And I thought that Jerome Powell was going to be good because he came from the private sector and understood, but he got there and he no longer understands how a market functions, letting the asset classes price themselves and quit trying to manipulate things that can't manipulate it, because we just continue to dig a deeper and deeper hole. And I don't let the market sell off. It'll come back. It's sold off before. I mean, 87, I was on the floor trading. It sold off in 01 and it sold off. It'll come back. Let the market, forget about the markets. Let's take care of the retirees and the people that still need to have that interest rate higher, where they can put money in a bank instead of having to put it at risk in the stock market.
And to that point, Tracy, when the Fed had come out months before saying they thought that they thought inflation was transitory, do you really think they believed it at the moment?
I do. I actually do. And I think they thought that we were going to simply get through the supply chain issues and that things were going to settle itself out. I actually do believe they thought that, sadly, because if they didn't, I think they would have made very, very different decisions. The decisions, like Todd said, have been like head scratchers, quite frankly. Inflation is here. It's going to take a very long time for prices to go back. Look, I'm a believer that prices actually do go back. I know there's a lot of people that think once prices go up, they don't come down. I actually disagree with that. I think some entrepreneur or some young company comes in and undercuts the big guy and helps bring the prices back. That is the beauty of capitalism. So we're not here forever. I mean, I remember back in my previous life reporting on oil barrels that were close to $300. Like, things come back down again. This is what happens. Everything goes up and it comes back down. So inflation will get back to normal again.
I never saw Starbucks lower their prices. Oil companies do, of course, because they have to. But I think when you look at the bigger picture, okay, the Fed made the wrong decisions all the way through and not on their own accord. And we no longer have the same meaning or view of capitalism in this country because of what the way we're getting administered right now. So there's not that same reach out to become capitalists.
But to Tracy's point, maybe we'll see a Starbucks 2.0 with cheaper coffee and cheaper egg white white.
Well, if they can get into business at the cost, and remember, it's harder to get into business, which is when you start to separate companies in size, it's harder for the smaller guy to compete. And when you start to trash the capitalistic model, it makes it much more difficult. And those are the issues that are underlying all of this.
Todd, you're showing your age. You have to believe in the entrepreneurial spirit. I will forever Support the little guy.
I'm with you, honey. I hope that they go on forever. And I hope we get out of this period of time, not for me, because I'm old. I won't be here when it really hits the fan. But, for my kids and my grandchildren, I'd hate to see them in the direction they're going, have to suffer through what's going to happen if somebody doesn't step up soon and change the model that we're building, because you keep losing, freedoms that get taken away. You've got Facebook that doesn't take any conservative talk, Twitter. So where do the conservatives have a voice? And again, I think these are freedoms that we're giving up and nobody's saying a word.
Okay, let's talk Nancy Pelosi now, currently looking at legislation which would prevent lawmakers from owning stocks. As you know, this was a hot topic a few months ago. She's come under a lot of pressure for her own book. Is it about time, Tracy, that this is happening?
I think it's pathetically late, Daniela. It's amazing to me that they've gotten away with it for this long. Just the vaccine conversation alone, the information they have been privy to all these years, and the little guy trying so hard to just follow the S&P 500 and make some money in their retirement accounts. It's such a disgrace. There is no wonder people don't trust our congressional leaders, but they govern themselves. So somehow I blame us for allowing a system like this to be created. We should have voted this out years ago. They should not be allowed to own individual stocks.
Bubba?
Tracy nailed it. I mean, look, they're stealing from the average person. They have all the inside information. They know what the regulations are going to be ahead of time, and they're stealing. Let's just put it what it is. They're making these illegal inside trades. And certainly with this virus, how much money did they make on the vaccines that were coming out, not coming out, and who was going to get it? They pick winners and losers by the laws and rules that they make, and then they participate behind the scenes. So they're always there. They don't have losing trades. It's almost, what they do is almost impossible. And Nancy Pelosi is one of the biggest offenders of this. But now that she's getting ready to quit and retire, well, let's now do it now. Why didn't you do it 30 years ago, Nancy Pelosi? But of course, you wanted to get your $150 million first before you did it.
Let's wrap with your forecasts here, guys. I'm curious to know where you think U.S. equities, Bitcoin is headed. Tracy, let's start with you. U.S. equities, there's a lot of talk and anticipation that a correction is brewing. It's around the corner. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, look, we originally thought that the first half of the year was going to be better than the second. I think it's flip-flop now. I think we're looking at a really volatile first half of the year. We need the Fed to start doing something at this point. It's like, just do something. I feel like I say this to my kids all the time. Do something. We need that because we need the market to settle out a little. Earnings have been okay, not great. So we have expectations coming down a little bit. I think the back half of the year, though, supply chain adjustments will finally start to settle in. We'll start to feel the Fed and figure out what's actually happening with it. I think we can expect a better back half of the year than a first.
Bubba, you see a big correction coming, don't you?
Tracy, I hope you're right. Okay, honest. I hope you're right and correct. But unfortunately, I think you're in big trouble with that prediction. I think there's a chance you could see a 20 to 30 to 40% haircut this year. And I think it's only going to get worse. And I see no resolution to the supply chain. I see no resolution to the problems. And I see no resolution to the Fed, which again is the bigger controlling factor here because it's about the money. And I think that you're going to see, now I'm long. So just full disclosure, I'm long right now. Okay. So I don't want to make, like I'm this bear guy, but I do see a real potential for another major meltdown. You're already seeing the signs that people are overbidding for houses and things like that because it comes down to the interest rate and the money, which the interest rate is out of whack. The whole system is out of whack because of all the stimulus and all the free money that they tried to give away to buy votes for later. And this is a crock, and I could see a real big disaster coming here. So I would not be surprised to see as much as a 50% haircut in the next year or so.
So on that point, do we see a risk asset Bitcoin? We see it rebounding now. Will it follow the trajectory of the stock market?
Well, I think Bitcoin's an animal all to itself. Okay, I think it's real, as you know. I think it's going to be around. I think you've got some major legislation coming through right now, which is going to securitize some of them. They'll be unregistered, which will put those out of business. But when it's said and done, cryptocurrency is real, and it's the central banks are fighting it like crazy because they don't want it. They want control of the money, and this is them giving up control. And I think that the crypto world is the currency of the libertarian free market, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I think Bitcoin will go where it's going to go. And I think if the market is really correct, I think Bitcoin goes a lot higher.
Tracy, are you bullish Bitcoin?
Look, I, to be very honest and frank, I can't buy it for my clients, so I don't spend a lot of time understanding it, other than the fact that I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's here to stay. I think the biggest fear for the government, at least, is it's something they don't understand, and that's so typical. They come to the party so late on things, and so they're going to try to legislate from behind, which we've seen happen before, and it's a mess. So all the power to the cryptocurrency traders right now, because they have a big leeway before the laws ever catch up.
Let me phrase it to you then like this, because we've seen how the China crackdown, Nigeria's crackdown really didn't have an impact on Bitcoin's price overall. But what happens when if the US were to step in with regulation? Would that be, show's over?
No, I don't think it shows over at all. I think that it would probably help in a lot of ways, because so many people don't actually know what to do. Like even reporting it on your tax return. Do I pay capital gains? Does it follow the wash sale rule? The answer is no, right? So you have all this unknown. And I actually think that's only, once you regulate it, it'll only help Bitcoin, because more people that are scared right now staying on the sidelines because they're afraid of the whole thing might actually feel a little bit better. So it'll just empower cryptocurrencies altogether.
Okay, last thought, hot sector for you. What are you liking right now, Tracy?
So I think a lot of people are moving towards dividend paying stocks right now. I think we're going to see them have their day for a little bit again.
Bubba?
Well, I think that really I like the precious metal space, even though I'm short at the moment. And I like the oil space, because again, oil is going to go through the roof until we decide to allow fracking and shale producing once again in this country. And until then, I want to be in oil and gas and metals.
Okay. Any favorite pick in the metals? Gold or silver right now? Platinum, palladium, rhodium?
Well, I think platinum is the biggest value right now. I mean, it's hard to trade palladium, but platinum, I think, is the biggest bargain, but it's been really a dog for a number of years now. Again, gold is always a safe standby, but certainly I would be investing in physical metals as well, and buying gold and buying platinum as well, because to me, it's like on sale at half price. So
there you go. Tracy, Bubba, I had a blast. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I think it was informative, fun. Come back again.
I'd love to.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you again. And thank you all for watching. We'll have much more for you. So be sure to stay tuned to StansberryInvestor.com. In the meantime, don't forget to sign up for premier access to content you can't get anywhere else at DanielaCambone.com. That's it for me.
Opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the contributor and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Stansberry Research, its parent company, or affiliates.